Turn the lights back on. Wow. Retro Electro Tech. When real audio ruled the world.
Greetings once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Retro Ernest of Retro Electro Tech. I'm going to help a couple that brought in some equipment kind of make a decision on what they might want to go with to kind of set up a little system that they can enjoy. It's all just kind of some budget stuff, nothing real super high-end, obviously. We have a Technics Tomato SL B as in Bravo 210 semi-automatic turntable, and then we have this Audio Technica full automatic turntable. It's an AT as in Alpha Tango, PL50 as in Papa Lima 50. And they're both just entry-level turntables, so I'm not going to get into a lot of evaluation as far as getting into, specs and all kinds of groovy stuff like that. I just want to kind of do a quick comparison, just, pull the platters off, and, they're both belt driven, and we'll kind of just take a quick look after we pop the platters off and just see how things look and all that stuff, and go from there. Otherwise, that's about it. Let's get into it, and I will kind of help them to make a decision. Also, these are going to be just quick, down and dirty kind of ghetto tech, and just get to it and see if they work, what they're all about, because they have some other stuff too. They brought in a receiver, a Harman Kardon receiver, a couple speakers, so I'm just going to help them kind of make a comparison and then let them know what it's going to take to get things cleaned up, serviced a little bit. I don't know what's going on with the receiver yet. We'll see whether it works. I think it probably does. Like a lot of this stuff, it'll probably have dirty controls, staticky controls, maybe intermittent controls. Hopefully there's nothing going on with it beyond that, because I really don't want to get into too much, deep servicing because of how extremely busy I am. But I would like to get them started, and hopefully if this stuff is working okay, just get it cleaned up and working good enough, and so they can put it into service and enjoy some tunes. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so let's start out with this Audio Technica and just see first of all if there's a belt. Before I even power it up, I just want to pop the platter and just take a look under the platter and see what's going on there. Get the platter mat out of the way. Yeah, there's the motor pulley, and there's no belt on it. So let's see. Well, there's a belt in there. Okay, cool. Now let me get the belt on real quick. Okay, so you can see that the belt here is remounted to the underside of the platter. So let's go ahead and get it back in place. And all you do with these is line up one of these access holes with the motor pulley and grab a hold of the belt and stretch it back over the pulley there, and you're in business. So let's go ahead and see what there is to see as far as powering this up, and see if we get rotation. Let me switch on the current limiter and just go ahead and start by hitting start, which is right here. And okay, it looks like our set down function is okay. That's looking good. Let me just walk it across. All right, and our end of play is working. A moment ago off camera, I checked to see if there was a stylus, and anyways, here it is. And the stylus is missing on this, so it's going to need a new stylus. So I just wanted to do that before I started messing around with the, testing the turntable, just in case, the arm was to slip out of my grip and fall on the platter. I didn't want to damage the needle, but there wasn't a needle, so there you go. Or stylus, whatever, tomato. So yeah, that's that. It looks like everything is working good as far as mechanically. So obviously I'm not going to be able to test it with vinyl until I get the stylus. So let me just say to the customer that since this is a budget entry-level turntable and it's fairly newer, what did I say it was, about 2007, something like that, I don't anticipate that there's really any issues with degraded lubricant, factory lubricant, and all that stuff. And the fact that it's working mechanically tells me what I need to know, good enough. And if everything is working fine with a stylus on board, then you can use it as is. The only thing, let me see real quick. Let me just check the speeds. We're on 33. Let's just. Yeah, it's looking good. I don't know if you can see that, the queuing lever. So my advice to the customer on this is, as far as this turntable goes, you can use it. And that being said, I wouldn't do anything else to this. If I start getting into disassembly and all that stuff, I don't think you want to go there. And as far as I'm concerned, there's really no need because it's working. Just keep it at that. It's a budget turntable. Get a stylus for it if you want to use this one, and there you go. Okay, and here we are with the Technics SLB210, which is a semi-automatic turntable, which means you have to lift the tone arm. There's a queuing lever, to lift the tone arm, then you can swing it over and then use the queuing lever to perform a set down. You can manually lift it if you feel that you have a steady of enough hand and set it down, but it has a queuing lever nonetheless. And in the interest of time, I popped off the platter, and the belt was off the pulley on this one. This belt here is a little bit more, it's lost its elasticity a little bit, but it still works. It hasn't snapped or anything. It just felt a little bit more, a little bit looser, like it just didn't have the elasticity that it once did. A little bit more stretched, but it still appears to sit on the motor pulley okay, is what I'm trying to say. So anyways, we'll go ahead and fire this up. Let me get the platter mat back on, and we'll see what there is to see with this one. And I'll start by okay. And this is, like I said, semi-automatic, so it doesn't have a start button. And let me see here. And this one, this has a stylus on it, and it feels like it's okay, good enough, anyways. So let me just check the queuing lever here. Yeah, the queuing lever's coming up, but it looks a bit sluggish. Okay, let me drop it. Okay, it's dropping down. The queuing lever bounced back. It drops down okay, but it's coming up pretty sluggishly. Let me try that again. So I have to kind of hold this all the way, or it wants to kind of bounce back a little bit, at least until the queuing lever rises from the tone arm base there. So probably what would have to be done there is I'd have to go in from the bottom, into the tone arm base and clean things up and, check the damping and so forth, and just the usual stuff that you would do to get this going. I'm not going to explain the, technical details and all that stuff because, again, there's those of you that follow along that like that sort of thing, but this is mostly for the customer. But that queuing mechanism in there would need probably a little work to kind of smooth it out. And let me actually drop it down, okay. Walk it across and see if the end of play is working okay. Well, I didn't even hear it engage. But it obviously works. Let me carry it across again. There it goes. And the mechanism, you can hear it's a little clunky, so yeah, a little bit clunky. You know, they do that sometimes, but you know, again, as I mentioned before, this is a pretty old turntable, and it's probably going to need to have somebody go in and kind of clean things up a little bit, freshen up the factory lubricant, and in all honesty, it's not going to be super cheap. It's not going to be horribly expensive, but again, you know, I got to go in there and you know, I at least have to break down the mechanism to some degree to do the job properly, to get everything cleaned out. You know, I could probably do some of it. Some of it I could do a little bit more superficially and kind of clean things up on the surface a little bit. But if it's going to be done properly, then the mechanism has to be disassembled properly, things cleaned up thoroughly, and the lubricant reapplied appropriately. So that's where you're going to get into the money with this. But otherwise, you know, it appears that it's working. You can use it as is. Let's just do a test with some vinyl, and if it's putting out a signal, if it's putting out music, then other than maybe cleaning up the exterior, you know, you could probably just use it as is, and you know, just deal with the cueing lever. It's working. And you know, the best thing for these, in all honesty, sure, the lubricant has no doubt started breaking down a bit. Maybe it's getting a little bit more viscous, and you know, the mechanism is a little clunky. But other than that, you know what? The best thing for these is exercise. Because if they just sit and, you know, you don't exercise the mechanism and all that, that's the worst thing for anything mechanical. So there's that. And the only other thing, if you decide you'd want to use this turntable here, is just get another belt. But, you know, I can clean this up for you if you want a little bit, get a belt, and you can use it. This has a stylus. We'll see if the stylus is a good one. And let's go ahead and throw some vinyl on it and check it out. Well, before I get started with the test here, yes, there is a dust cover, and you know, it's pretty rough. You see these big old cracks here. It was actually kind of caved in, pushed in, but I put it on a flat surface, popped these back out. Excuse me. And I mean, this stuff could be cleaned up. There's paint on it here and there, and a lot of dirt. If it's cleaned up, it'll look a little bit better, but obviously there's nothing that could be done about these big old cracks. But it does have a dust cover, and there you go. Okay, so let's get moving and grooving with this test here to see if this thing is outputting okay, which I'm sure it probably will. It seems to have a good stylus on it. I have some, I have all kinds of vinyl in the shop here, test vinyl and all that. I'm more of a rock and roller kind of guy, but hey, I'm going to throw some disco on because I have some disco. I like it all, really, you know, all that good booty bouncing music and all that funky stuff, and from back in the day, the golden age. So, yeah, what do we have here? Saturday Night Fever, which is the music from Saturday Night Fever, but it was performed by the Bay Ridge Band. So, and who do we got here? Who's this guy? Hey, Guido. He looks greasy and sleazy, like he's gonna drool on down that girl's neckline. He looks like one of those polyester clad naughty boys. So, yeah, anyways, and then we got, what's this? As I bump the camera. Hot Nights and City Lights, the best disco in town, non-stop original disco hits and stars. Woo. And we've got, yeah, we got some Jackson 5. We got, who's that? Anita Ward, Gloria Gaynor, Amy Stewart. We got all those good-looking sisters. And, yeah, Pointer Sisters and the Village Guys. All right, so anyways. I got this vinyl ready to go. We'll put it on a tune called Bay Ridge Boogie, since the music on this album was done by the Bay Ridge Band. So let me set it down for starters. Now I don't have this turntable piped into an amp, because I have all of my test amps and all that stuff occupied right now. I just have the volume turned down. I have some other equipment in the shop that I'm running and testing. I have the volume turned down so that YouTube doesn't pick it up. So hopefully this song is obscure enough where YouTube won't pick it up and I won't get a copyright thing, but we'll see. But I have this turntable piped into my little test amp. So just this little signal tracer amp, but it'll work. Oh yeah. Okay, so as you can see, this thing is putting out the tunes. So let me just say that between these two turntables, that's a decision that you, the customer, will have to make. The Technics is a better turntable. As far as the way it compares internally, I'm sure if I was to open both of them up and do a side-by-side comparison, the Technics turntable, I mean, it has a better tone arm and all that based on just the physical appearance of the two. But remember too, though, this thing is older, probably early 80s, right around there, maybe mid 80s, I forget. But, and it does need a little bit of work. I mean, you can kind of tell, like I said, the cueing lever and all that, probably the mechanism, once again, as I already mentioned, the factory lubricant, there goes the end of play. Yeah, that's working. And, if I put a stylus on this one and it outputs fine, then, again, you can use either one. This has a lighter tracking force, which is the downward pressure exerted on the vinyl by the stylus. This one's a bit heavier, and as far as that goes, well, this is going to be a little bit more gentle on the vinyl than a heavier tracking force, a tone arm that exerts heavier downward pressure on your vinyl. But again, in my opinion, not that big of a deal. I wouldn't sweat it. I mean, it's not like you're going to be playing really high dollar collectible vinyl, very rare vinyl and all that stuff. If you're just wanting to throw just run of the mill vinyl on it, don't sweat it. Some people get all bent out of shape about it and go into seizures and all that stuff, but it is what it is. I'm from the old school. I just play vinyl to enjoy it. I don't abuse it, but at the same time, I don't sweat it. So there you go. There's my assessment. We'll get your receiver on the bench now and check it out and see what that's going to need. Okay, and now for this Harman Kardon 430 twin powered. It's dual power supplies, and this was produced in 1976 or thereabouts. And yeah, this is a nice little unit. I like it. I'm going to keep the rest of this video as brief as possible, so we'll just do a safe power up here and make sure that everything's okay. But before I do that, I'll just kind of pan over the top and take a look inside, do a quick safe power up, and then pretty much just get a signal in it and see what there is to see. Of course, I'm going to check the DC balance at the speaker outputs, make sure we don't have any DC there, because I am going to hook up some speakers to it. And because I do have a pair of their speakers, the couple that brought this equipment in, the turntables and this receiver here. So I just want to get everything tested out for them and see what needs to be done and go from there. And here we are looking into the top side, and everything looks good so far based on just a quick visual inspection. And this is more for the customer here, what I'm about to explain. Usually what I look for is obvious problems, okay? Things that look out of sorts. These can-looking things you see here on the top are referred to as electrolytic capacitors. They're kind of known to be problematic as they age, and internally they start to degrade. They have a chemistry inside, and as they degrade, sometimes they start failing. Either their performance or they just poop the bed. They can fail kind of catastrophically or silently. When they fail catastrophically, sometimes they can vent open and kind of pop, and but otherwise sometimes telltale signs are these electrolytics will start kind of deforming externally, kind of bulging a little bit, and they can physically start leaking their chemistry, leaking their contents on the circuit board. I don't see any of that going on. Other components, sometimes you want to look for things like signs of overheating, parts that look kind of discolored or scorched, or just things that don't look normal, parts that look atypical. And everything so far seems okay. Even the wiring that I see, it looks okay. It looks like a nice, nicely laid out design, dual power supplies and all that. So based on what I see, inside, I don't really have anything bad to report, but there is one red flag that could indicate there was some problems. Okay, so around the back side here we have our fuse holders. Okay, we have our fuse holder and holders, plural. And as always, you want to check fuses. That's always something that should be done, because you never know what you're going to find. Open fuses, or more commonly referred to as blown fuses. And although the fuses were fine in that regard, they weren't open or blown, but they were overrated. I put the appropriate fuses in their place, and what was in there in the in the line side, there was a 20 amp fuse. These two speaker protect fuses here, one was a 10 amp and a 15 amp, and they all should be 3 amp. So the $1,000,000 question: why did they do that? Why did they insert fuses that were overrated? So we'll see, but let me go ahead and zoom back on out here. Also too, there's another couple fuses here in the power supply between these reservoir caps, but they are the correct fuses and they are not open, so that's a good sign. They do look like the original fuses, and I'm actually pretty sure they are. And okay, and they're not open, so that gives me a little hope. So but you got to wonder though why somebody stuck overrated fuses in the speaker protect positions and the line fuse position. But we live in a strange world. So let me go ahead and pan this thing up to the current limiter up there, and I'm obviously going to power this thing on with heavy current limiting. And to the customer, what that is, that just limits the amount of current that this receiver here can consume, because typically when something is going to fail and short out, it will draw, it will pull heavy current. And so it's kind of like feeding a fire. Okay, if you starve a fire of oxygen, it can't grow. So you'll notice there's bulbs up there. The bulbs are what limit the current. So when I flick on the one of the bulbs, you're going to see it glow bright initially, and it should dim down and then just stay in a dimmed state. I'm going to pull in one of these bulbs here, so keep your eye on this bulb here. And there you go, you saw it light up, and I'm glad to see that it dimmed down. So what we're going to want to do is, well, I'm obviously not going to keep the camera going, but I'm going to monitor that for quite some time and make sure that that bulb doesn't start to try to brighten up again, and or kind of fluctuate and start behaving strangely, as though the unit is trying to draw heavy current. And and all that. So I will be back momentarily. Okay, so I'm going to try to get through this section as fast as I can. So I've been monitoring this receiver here for probably about 30 minutes on the current limiter. It hasn't tried to do anything destructive, okay, draw heavy current, run away, go into meltdown mode. Not a single fluctuation of that bulb. So, I have been monitoring it pretty close, so that's good. Like I said, who knows why they stuck overrated fuses in there. There could be a problem. Something that's intermittent, I don't know. But again, on the top side, everything looks okay. No signs of, component shorting out and nothing overheating, anything like that. And because of the way the unit responded when I initially powered it up on the current limiter, I haven't been underneath yet. I haven't pulled the cover off and all that, because when I initially powered it up, being that it behaved rather well and didn't try to go into meltdown mode, like I said, then, I wasn't real worried about taking a look at the underside. I am going to go under there and take a look, but right now I'm just monitoring things. So, here's where I'm going with this for the customer. And you guys that follow along that are more technically, minded or more technical minded and understand this stuff, I'm not really explaining this for you, although you obviously know what I'm talking about, but I need to explain this in a way that the customer will understand, because I can't assume that they have a technical background, that they understand how this stuff works. So I'm going to put it in simple terms, in other words, so just kind of bear with me on that. So anyways, to the customer, I do have a signal fed into the back of this receiver, into the auxiliary inputs. So I'm feeding a signal from that device there into this, and then I'm kind of measuring what's coming out of it, okay? So let me go ahead and get situated here, and I will be right back. So anyways, I had to swap out the battery, but what we're looking at here on that screen is, you see there's a yellow and a blue set of squiggly lines, or what is referred to as a waveform. That is the signal that's coming out of that device that's going into your receiver and coming right back out into that. So we are essentially looking at sound. And so that's essentially your right and your left speaker. The yellow line is your right speaker, or the yellow waveform, excuse me, is your right speaker, and the blue one is your left speaker. So that's what would be coming out of your speakers, and it would sound just like a steady tone. So I'm monitoring that to see if, of course, initially if there was output, and as you can see, we have output. And if I raise the volume up and down, we have a proper function there. So one thing I'm going to do, instead of hooking up speakers, eventually I'm going to hook your speakers up if everything goes okay, that is. I don't want to hook your speakers up right away. And I'm going to explain why that is. But anyways, while we look at those waveforms there, I'm going to go through the controls real quick. And typically, when controls are dirty or otherwise defective, behaving intermittently, cutting in and out or getting staticky, you can see that on those waveforms there. You'll see like artifact, like little, it'll start getting real jittery and all that. I'll try to simulate it with just by turning the volume thing up and down. Like if it was getting intermittent, it would start getting jumpy like that. It would even kind of drop out, and the waveforms would go flat like that. They would flatline, and so obviously they're steady right there. And when I move through the volume control up and down like that, I'm not going to go all the way through the volume because I still have this unit current limited and I can't take it all the way up. But you can see that these waveforms are moving up and down slowly. Okay, they're not getting jittery. They're not, you don't see any artifact mixed in with those waveforms that look like something else mixed in with those waveforms, you know, getting all kind of like staticky looking. So, so that's looking good. Our volume's looking good. I'm going to keep that up. I'm going to rotate our balance knob back and forth, okay? And our balance control looks pretty good. If I move through it really slow, you got to kind of move through them slow and see if they get staticky at some point, or, you know, start kind of getting jittery, jumping around, you know, getting kind of intermittent. That looks okay. The only control that I see that's really exhibiting some intermittent behavior that's being a little bit problematic is the selector switch there. Okay, and I'm going to back out enough so that this thing kind of achieves focus. If I'm zoomed in too close, it gets blurry. So the selector switch here, the mode switch for auxiliary, phono, FM stereo, FM AM, all that. Let me go ahead and zoom back up. If you keep an eye on those waveforms there, when I fiddle around with the switch, you see that? You see that right channel getting all intermittent, and it'll get to the point where it just cuts out completely. And if I just jiggle it a little bit, it'll kick back on. So that's a dirty selector switch. That has to, you know, that has to be accessed and flushed and so forth, and just cleaned up nicely. So anyways, that's that. Otherwise, it seems to be behaving pretty good. I like what I'm seeing so far, especially since, like I pointed out, you know, we had those overrated fuses that were stuck in there. I thought we were going to have some big problems, perhaps, and you know, so far so good. Let's hope it stays that way. So what I recommend on this is servicing the controls. If I just do this one, leave the other ones, I can do that, but just be forewarned that you may start having problems with these down the road with some noise, and you know, they're not going to improve with age. So I flush out the controls multiple times and position them so that they drain properly, and really flush them out and work them and work them and work them and exercise them while I'm flushing them. And then after they kind of dry out and so forth, then I'll reintroduce some lubricant, the appropriate lubricant for these type of controls, and they should be good to go from there. So I'll get with you on that as far as what that's going to run you, and otherwise, all you other guys that are watching this, you kind of know the routine of going through all these controls and what needs to be done in all this old gear with controls and so forth. So some of it's preventative in the controls that are working okay right now, but this control certainly needs it, but all the rest are just preventative, and it's a good idea to do that. So, and in addition to that, I'm going to go in here, I will go in and kind of clean things up, get all the dust out, clean things. You know, I'm going to look at the bottom side and look at the circuit boards. If I see solder joints that look kind of funky, I'll touch up solder joints, get the soldering iron, go in there and touch things up, because that's pretty common stuff. You know, in a lot of this equipment, when I go in and start inspecting the backs of the circuit boards, looking at solder joints, a lot of times solder joints look a little bit shabby. Some are downright gnarly, and they need to be touched up so that you don't start having any connection issues down the road, because the solder joints start to get kind of crappy. You know, you can have all kinds of problems. So I'll take a look, and if I see anything that kind of stands out, really sticks out, I'll touch up solder joints, that type of stuff. But otherwise, if this thing holds up, you should be okay. Should there be more work performed, you know, like electrolytic recapping, removing old capacitors, that's ideal, but we'll need to talk about that, because right now I'm not doing too much full bore recapping. I would have to schedule that in at a later time, because I'm just loaded down with work, and I don't want to take on a lot of full recapping jobs right now, not at this time. If there was a bad cap, you know, a few of them here and there, I don't mind doing that, but I don't want to do full recapping at this time. maybe at a later date. I can do that. We can schedule that. But right now they seem to be okay. So that's common stuff, electrolytic recapping, getting those old caps out of there, things like that. But other than that, I think that if I just get these controls worked on, and if nothing else crops up, there's not an intermittent problem that's going to prove to be an issue, then this thing may be good to go. Okay, so I'm going to get with the customer guys on this and talk to them about their turntables, about this. Although before I do go, you know what, I will flash back here and I forgot about their speakers. Let me get their speakers hooked up. I'll check DC balance first. We'll get their speakers hooked up and just do a quick sound test just for kicks. Okay, so the unit is still humming right along, doing fine, and you can see I have the customer's speakers hooked up. I did check DC offset before I hooked up the speakers, and everything's looking good there. I think it's hovering about 10 millivolts right around there, both channels, so it's good enough. And the biasing though, on the other hand, was turned down pretty low. Factory spec calls for 25 millivolts. I think this was right around 9 millivolts, right around there, so it was low. And I understand the customer doesn't really know about the biasing and all that. I'm not really going to explain it, or at least I assume they don't. If they do, they do. Fine. I'm not going to explain that aspect of things. But anyways, we'll move on to some audio testing. I have a station tuned in right now just to kind of show you that the receiver's working. And anyways, I'll just turn it up. There's probably copywritten material playing, so I'm only going to turn it up for a moment and then turn it back down. Okay, so that's a local country station, but I do have some YouTube safe music piped into the auxiliary input, so I'll switch on over to auxiliary. And you know what, you might even experience that issue that's going on with the selector switch, the mode switch. You might hear it kind of get a little bit fickle and crackly and even cut out on one channel. If you do, that's great. I might even just demonstrate it and play around the thing that I was showing you on the oscilloscope. But anyways, let me go ahead and get the tunes going. And let me see if I can fiddle with that switch and get it to kind of cut in and out and all that. Yeah, see it? We lost the channel, the left channel. And I'll jiggle it again. And there you go, it's back on. So yeah, that switch is the most problematic one. So again, you know, if I move forward, I'll get all these controls serviced. Okay, so there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here, guys. And as I always say, peace, love, music, and the vintage audio that brings it to your ears. Till next time, take care.
This is a poor man's shoe production.